Yeah, so a very good evening to one and all present here. I am Madhav Agarwal from IIT ISM Dhanbad, representing ACM student chapter. I welcome you all to the SIG session of Hour of Code 2021 on web development. Today we have a very special guest with us, Aman Sharma sir, who is the co-founder and CTO of Twimbit. He'll be discussing about the field of web development and guiding you to start your career in this amazing field. Also, towards the end of the session, we'll be having a Q&A. So make sure you ask your questions in the live chat below. With this, I hand over to Aman sir for the session.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today. Actually, I was a little bit in rush. I got some emergencies. That's why I was not like super prepared. So this is like my makeshift conference place. And but I'll be trying my best to deliver the message. And first of all, thanks ACM ISM Dhanbad for having me here. I always love mentoring students. So I hope I could share some valuable lessons, something that you are confused about in about careers, and let's see what happens, and feel free to ask your questions. So Madhav, I'll request you to share my screen if it's possible. Okay, awesome. So I have created some kind of roadmap kind of structure which will help you understand the overall web scenario of web development. But before that, let me little bit give you a glimpse of what we are going to talk today, who I am, why you should listen to me. So all these things will help you understand and kind of really get into why we should be attending this session today. So let me do a little bit of setup so that you guys don't have any problem. Okay, so my name is Aman Sharma. I am currently the acting CTO of Twimbit. Twimbit is a research company, and we create research for businesses using data science, machine learning, and allied technologies. So I have been in this field for last 2 years, and before that I was in BIT Mesra. Some of you guys might have been hearing about that. So that is where I got into college and did my college in computer science engineering. So apart from this, I am a open source contributor for various project and fields, and like kind of all rounder in web development, how DevOps works, how cloud works, machine learning, and all that. So and this is like our daily bread and butter. So I think I'll be able to give you a little industry level exposure of what uh, engineering and computer science engineering overall is, and what especially you can do in web development. So kind of the question that why you should hear for me today is basically like, first of all, I come from the same kind of mindset that you guys are having. The problem that I faced in my college was that whatever I'm doing in my startup currently, in my actual college journey, it was only 10% that I was like taught about, most about like coding part and computer science part, but not much in detail. So that's probably, so I like kind of took that perception about how we can get into that track, do some couple of internships, and then uh, get ourselves into this full-time role of whichever web stream you want to go. So I had done like 5 internships before actually starting this startup, and done 2 startups during my college period only. So probably that was the best time that helped me understand what web development overall is. And there is no like one guidebook or one YouTube channel or like one book that I can like suggest you which will help you understand everything. So it's just having a good mentor network that really helps, and having a connection, close connection with industrial people is also that helps. So with that done, most of you, I assume, are interested in coding, because that, I guess, what ACM is all about. And some of you might be in computer science branch, some of you might be in electrical branch. So first of all, let's understand, like, if you are coming from the coding perspective, what are the different fields of like coding things that you can go. And this is not anywhere like a definition kind of thing, it's just my opinion about what I think today's programming or coding is distributed into. So the first one is like hardcore web development. So that's what we are going to talk about. And web development leads with everything that has to do with creation of applications that are hosted on web. The other one is app development, which deals with creation of native apps and mobile apps for iOS, Android. Probably some of you might be already doing that. Then the other one that usually people go for is data sciences. Now there is some kind of dilemma, like people kind of confuse with artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science, but I would like categorize all of them into data science only, because the stack that you will be following right now to become any of these is data science. So it deals with probably data structures, different algorithms that goes for creation of these data science kind of thing. Then another level you might become, if not web, another kind of development which we classify, and it's a generalized field of software development, SDE, SDI, SDE1, 2. You might be hearing these terms. Incoming SDE, I hear this most often. So software development role is also kind of very popular role in terms of web, in terms of development field, if you are not becoming a web developer. So web development is kind of the niche of all of these things, and currently it's the most popular skill in demand right now in the market if you are looking for engineering jobs. So why, to understand why it has happened, basically to be simple, like if I ask you, where do you spend most of your daily time, right? So I don't know, Madhav, is it possible for me to see comments if somebody gives answers or something?
Yes, sir, the comments will be visible
Okay.
on the
So
right.
yeah, I am actually switching between screens, so whenever guys you want to interact, please feel free to add comments. I'll be reading them. And Madhav, if you have question, you can drop in anytime. Okay, pause me and then you can ask question, because I cannot see the comments while I'm sharing the screen. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so probably the answer would be most of the time you are surfing Facebook. Okay, Facebook is outdated, so we can say Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Netflix, even Netflix. All of this application, whatever you use, e-commerce website, all the daily traffic, somewhere has to go through the web development, web traffic, if not app. The other one is app, but then the first interaction window is web. You probably won't initially create any account for any service without going on their website and getting to know about it. And it has been like a kind of fundamental thing, the building block of the today's internet world, how web brought everybody together, and how easy is for anybody who is having a little bit of budget, little bit of resources, and he can launch his e-commerce business, e-store business, and launch his product online. So that has been kind of the stagnant way, and that brings us to the question of like popularity of web development. If not actually on the report, I can like surely say it has grown over like 200% since 10 years. And the problem is, nobody is teaching web development in college. Most probably you will be learning Java, J2EE, or something like that. But nobody is teaching you hardcore JavaScript, HTML, Node.js, Ruby. Not even some of colleges might teach Python. So that's kind of a hard reality, that the most important opportunity in engineering currently, and that's not being taught in colleges. Now, I'm not the one who is fan of complaining about education system and I can bring a revolution, but it's not up to their fault. They have only 4 years, and if they have to teach every new field in that niche, it won't be a college, it would be a startup. So that brings us to the question of what you can do about it. So the probable ways of learning web development that I usually define to anybody is like, the first one is network. And network is just like how you have joined this college group of ACM. You like more mentors are coming to you, so this is like the probable first way of doing it. The second thing is surround yourself with socially surround yourself with the content that can help you reach to your goal of becoming a good web developer. Let it be LinkedIn, let it be Twitter. Follow those people that you think would be better for your career and will help you overall. And the other one is, uh, you know I like categorize it as YouTube or course sites. Like most of the like I also still now learn a new thing on YouTube or something. So there is no barrier, like if you want to come and say, Aman, I cannot learn because I don't have money to pay for Coursera or Udemy, you are really stupid, because like it's investment on you, and you should totally do it. And if not any paid course, go for YouTube. If you want to get certification is not a question. Nobody in job interviews in startups or any other field would ask for your certificate and not your skills. Even if you don't have a certificate, you can resonate your skills by actually doing projects. We'll talk about how you can create a good portfolio and how you can do projects, but this is the essential thing. Don't do any course for a piece of paper that can help you land into a good job, because even if you land, you will be struggling with not knowing the basics. So cover up the basics, cover up the skills using courses, and then go confidently, create some project, go to the recruiter. They will definitely hire you. And any company today, if they come, they need web development overall in this kind of fields. And the best part is the basics remain same. The data structures, the algorithms that you are studying, they apply the same in web development. It's just the syntax, it's just the frameworks that you are learning. So even if you are not liking too much the web development field, you can totally jump into some other field. That's totally fine, and still it would be somehow connected with the same environment. So with that covered, probably that's the pretty much introduction about what topic we are going to cover today. Let's jump directly into what is the web development path for 2021. So basically, any, like, whatever path you use, like as I explained you before, uh, by the way, credit to roadmap.sh for creating this amazing path. I'm just using it. I've just combined different resources from different platforms, but the real credit goes to them, that they created this awesome way of getting this path. You can download this path also from roadmap.sh, but I'll be using this as a template to explain you what are the different paths and what are the different steps for you to take to become a better web developer in 2021. So the first and foremost requirement for any of these field is this list that you see on your left hand side. So that includes Git. For those of you who don't know what is Git, Git is like a forever undo command for code. It like creates different versions of your code, and that's hosted on different website, be it GitLab, be it GitHub, be it Bitbucket. These are different platforms to host your code. And these days I've seen it a trend that it's not just for storing code, it's for many things. It's like a social media for programmers these days. And if you are not doing GitHub today, you are a fool. Trust me, you don't go to a job interview without having 0 projects on your GitHub profile. And if you don't have a GitHub profile, that's even bad. So the first thing you should do is create a GitHub profile. Second thing, start creating open source project and start doing stuff. Even if it's like whatever hackathon is coming, a simple HTML page, you don't log it to GitHub, it's wastage of your time. And for the interview, they can't see what you have done. And if you don't know about GitHub, then I'll probably say go and watch a video. I'll not get into deep of any of these technologies, but we'll give you a little bit of introduction. But still, if you have some niche questions, some kind of myth, some kind of doubts, I'll be really happy to explain you. I have a question, sir. Is it possible to go through web development through Python? Yeah, it's totally possible. There are some frameworks such as Django, Flask, fast.ai. All these like frameworks has enabled us to use Python also for web development. It's not popularly used in web development field. If there is no other company that comes on top of my mind when I think about if they use their full stack with Python or not, but probably some kind of niche thing. But it's probably good for backend, not much versatile for creating UIs and stuff like that. But you can blend, mix and match different frameworks. We'll talk about the frameworks in like upcoming steps. So the next one is basic terminal usage. Now you will be like thinking the terminal usage is same like what, how do you see hacking in any movies, in sci-fi movies, how they are typing a lot of commands, which is launching terminal. And that's what basically terminal usage means. The thing is that in industry, when we launch a website, or even when we use a lot of application, not all of them come with a UI. So you'll be surprised to know that before 1997, 1996, there was no UI with the whole operating system. Even a person who doesn't know coding has to learn terminal to run commands in that terminal which was DOS, the most popular one at that time, MS-DOS. It's not disk operating system. It was named dirty operating system just because of this issue that it was so dirty to learn, like all the terminal and thing. But fast forward, still today, not all, like, why companies just think why it should waste time on creating beautiful UIs when somebody can learn terminal usage and just you get the application done from the terminal. So that's probably why you should know the usage of terminal very much in these days. And the common one that comes in my mind, you should definitely know how to use ls command, cd command, move around in repository, copying and moving files, cloning your GitHub repository from GitHub, installing npm packages, Python commands. All these things are the part of terminal usage. If you want to go even more, you should definitely learn how to use Linux, Ubuntu, via terminal wholly, because all of the web applications are deployed on any Linux server, most probably Ubuntu, or if it's on AWS, it uses AWS Linux. The commands are almost the same, and if you know the Linux command very well, then you will be like flawless in deploying your website in any condition as possible. So okay, Sakshi has a question that is it possible through C++? Let me think. I have never seen anybody creating a website with C++, but I definitely know in today's era somebody would have done some hack to create website with C++. But I won't honestly like recommend you to going through that path because nobody needs that. What are some reliable open source free tools for learning web dev and app dev? Well, for web dev, I find Free Code Camp to be a very good tool. It's an amazing platform where you can learn end-to-end full stack web development without worrying about it. And it's totally free, by the way. And if you want to do a little better, then you should definitely go with some of the codes from Westboss or a course on Udemy. They are very good if they are highly rated. And same goes with app development. Again, for app development, it depends if you want to go with React Native. If you want to go with React Native, the basics are again JavaScript, React.js. You need to not React.js purely, but you need to know JavaScript before going into React Native. And if it's Android, then Java, and if it's iOS, then C#. You need to know these stacks before you jump into them. By the way, I'll be focusing on web development wholly in today's talk. So let's move forward. The next one is data structure and algorithm. I don't need to focus. This is like the pure stupidity, the basic ingredient. Imagine if you're cooking food, this is the water in web development. If you don't know data structure and algorithm, you shouldn't be doing engineering. Even if you're in electrical, you should know data structures and algorithms, how to traverse, how to sort, how to do quick search, quick sort, binary trees, linked list. All these are basic things anybody can cover up within I guess 1 month if you're not doing from scratch. And then once you do that, you should definitely go and have some sort of HackerRank or Lead Code or I don't know what are the popular platforms for practicing problem solving for data structure and algorithms, but you should definitely try it out. It shouldn't be just theory that you are learning. It should be the actual application of code. And again, it doesn't matter with which programming language. People find it very easy to do with Python. I did with C++ at my time, but I didn't find it any difficult if I moved from C++ to Python or JavaScript, because the syntax is almost syntax is what is different, but the logic remains same. It would be more easy if it is a more agile framework, for example JavaScript, but I won't recommend doing it from scratch, so that you have a basic knowledge of in-depth mathematics of algorithms. So I totally recommend it. Go do data structures. I found like my class 11th Sumita Arora. I don't know if some of you are from ICSE or CBSE. I love that book. I still read it sometimes if I am not clear about that. That's like the data structures and algorithm for dummies. So totally try it out, or just watch some YouTube videos to understand that. But don't skip data structure and algorithms if you want to become developer. GitHub I have already covered up. It's like one of the offerings for Git, and you should definitely have a GitHub account. If you want me to review your GitHub account, I can share my email ID. or you can find me on Twitter or LinkedIn, and you can message me your GitHub ID. I can like see how I can review your GitHub profile and tell you what you should do. So definitely a thing yet that you should note down right now if you are thinking you might forget this. After this end, share with me your GitHub ID. I'll review it. I'll tell you what are the feedbacks, things that needs to be done. I'll show my GitHub ID also so that you can see how you should do the projects. Next thing is licensing. Not like the first thing to do, as you can see in this whole list. Licensing is more like how the licensors, licensed in terms of open source, freeware, closeware, MIT license, Apache license, and all these kind of things. It's just probably like a 2 hours read to understand what different licenses means and what does it means for different web development roles to know about these licenses. Another question: will web development still thrive in future, keeping in mind an advancement in ML and AI? Well, how can I explain? Imagine if you are, if even if you drive car today, the fuel is still the same. So that's like the fuel. Maybe there will be more automations in terms of recommending content and creation of code and all that, but still web development for at least next 10 years is a growing skill. It's not going down. There is no alternative to web development. Maybe new JavaScript frameworks will come, maybe new programming language will come, but web development will still remain there. And don't worry about if you think that this framework will go away. This is like the baddest paradox that people get themselves confused into. Don't worry about it. Just do whatever you're doing. If you know the skill, it's very easy to learn another spell. That is a proverb that I always use. You learn JavaScript, you create your projects. Even if there is a new node, dino, whatever, you can switch to it very easily if you know the basic of how things are done. Next question, sir. I am learning data structures and algorithm now in Python, and I'm facing many problems and time constraints. What should I do, sir, to overcome this? Well, probably the best way is practice makes a man perfect. Create a time window, create a time schedule. Whenever you wake up, create a ritual. What are the things that you need to do today? Question yourself. In every day, you have 16 hours when you are awake. If we remove 8 hours of your sleeping schedule, imagine ask yourself how much of these 16 hours you are actually working and how much you are spending on Netflix or Instagram. Your career is your priority right now, and you should be the one who should be solving things with time constraint. Even if you begin now and your let's say your recruitment is in 3 months, if you dedicate at least 2 hours every day for next 1 month, imagine how much time you have. That's sufficient, but you should be consistent, practicing daily, testing out new skills, asking more mentors to help you out. That's the way to do it. There is no excuse. Nobody will help you. You have to do it yourself. So no solution for time constraint. You have to find your time. If you sleep 8 hours, sleep 6 hours, that doesn't matter, but this is the time that you should do it. Well, moving into next one. Semantic versioning, again, if you are not much familiar with this, you can skip it for now. Probably if you do any course or something, you will definitely get across this. What basically we use it for is like different npm versions and different code versions that we usually use. Again, next one is SSH. It's a way to connect to the web application or to the web server, I'm sorry. Again, it uses the same terminal window. You might have used putty in your one of your session. There are other probable tools. It's like a kind of a connection protocol, like how you use HTTPS to connect to websites. So use SSH to connect to the terminal window of a server that's launched. Again, a very good skill to learn. Try out SSH, deploy a website with SSH, and you should be good to know. HTTP, HTTPS, and APIs. Like these are the fundamental building blocks of whatever you do today. These are the fundamental building block of these technologies, and you should totally be knowing this even of any of these technologies. HTTP stands for hypertext transmission protocol. It's a protocol to transfer text and images via web links, which helps you see creative UIs, creative websites, whether you're surfing it on YouTube or Netflix, whatever you are doing. That's the way it is done. And then it was thought like, because it's an open traffic, anybody can intercept the signal and they can see it. That's why we brought HTTPS, which encrypts the connection. So same like how you use WhatsApp, it says end-to-end encryption. So basically HTTPS means the website, the viewer of the website and the server, the communication between them is encrypted by a SSL certificate. Again, this is another lingo that we usually, it's a certificate means just simply a key that can decode this encryption network that we are traveling through. I'll not be going through details. You should probably check it out. Again, a very fundamental link that you should do. And then APIs. Well, you might have heard this term a long time, and we'll be going into detail when we'll discussing about each stack. But APIs are the, again, connecting. It's like you can say it as like water pipes that connect to different endpoints. So basically, it's how the data is transferred between front end and back end, between different back ends, between different front ends. So everything happens super APIs. Design patterns, like material design and all these kind of things, like character encodings, which are basically how different, like web encodings and all that things. But go read it out, like just study a little bit about them, you'll be getting to know about these. Like I would give you a little bit of imposter syndrome right now, that oh my god, there is so much to do. So with this, we are here with choosing the actual path of what you should do in web development. Well, the first one is front end, and you guessed right. It's how the front of application, the visual part of application is seen. It probably is the most kind of, I won't say important, because it's everything is important, but it's what the user sees and it's what the user like respects a lot at the first glance. So basically the front end. We'll be going into detail again. Then backend is where the actual logic between applications really goes, which involves logging in out, logging out a person, logging the information into database, running a cron job, running a search algorithm. So basically all the algorithms and the functionality, heavy lifting functionality is performed on backend. It doesn't has an interface. The interface is API, and maybe you'll be using REST API. You would have heard about it. GraphQL, another UPI, again another interface to connect with the backend of Bharat payment system, things like that. And again, we'll be going in detail what backend actually means and things like that. And then finally you have DevOps. DevOps means developer operations, and this is also a very growing skills that people have seen these days. Basically the role of a DevOps person is to make sure that front end and back end work smoothly, involving analytics, deployment, quality control, quality analysis, basically A/B testing, Git versioning, everything that has to do with the management of all these things goes to the DevOps engineer. Scaling the application, load balancing, all these kind of things. So I'll explain you that too. And after the end of today's session, you can decide whether you want to become front-end developer or a back-end developer, or you can combine both of them to become a full stack developer, or you can add all three of them and become a web development god, as I term it, because then nothing is stopping you. You are full force of fury that can do anything if you like study all of these three things: front end, back end, and DevOps. So a must try if you want to go that path. But what I probably like think what is the best way and what I recommend to student is to go with the front end first, because it's the easiest to learn, then go with the back end, and the third one is DevOps. Remember all this after you learn all these basics. Don't rush into front end, back end, and DevOps before going through these required list, because you will be questioning yourself through the course time, because they'll be coming up with all these lingos you'll not be able to understand, and you'll be saying, oh my god, this is so hard. It is not hard. You just skip the first step. It seemed like you were supposed to cook chicken and you didn't create fry, you didn't do the tadka, and you expect the dish to be good. That's not possible, guys. So now let's jump straight into what you have in front end. And there are some recommendations also. This involves actually the questions. I really like this map, how they have categorized everything into different QAs. So that will help you understand what this field actually means. So whenever you land into front end, the first question actually comes is, what is internet? That's like the fundamental building block. Again, these will be repeated in other stacks too. So I'll explain it over here. And I actually created a course on web hosting and DevOps, web hosting and cloud, a couple of months ago. You should probably check out. I'll share the link on of that YouTube playlist. I covered everything about how internet works, how HTTP works, how different websites are displayed, and all that. So the first question in how does the internet work? You should check out a good, cool NatGeo video or Discovery video to see that. What is HTTP? I have already explained that. Browsers and how they work. Yeah, this is interesting. I would like to cover this right now. So browsers is a software that run HTTP. This is the simplest definition for what a web browser means. So basically, everything that is covering on internet, browser is the application that runs this code. The main job of browser is to interpret what is coming as different coding languages, as HTML, as JavaScript, as Rust, as there is one cool thing that is happening this day, WebAssembly. So the main job of a browser is to interpret this thing and display the result. And how they work is a very interesting thing. Actually, they use something called as an engine. So if you're using Chrome right now, they use V8. They call it V8 engine. I don't know the full form. They were thinking of switching to Fuchsia, which is also a very good web engine, which supports WebAssembly too. And then Safari uses something I don't remember actually. And then, like, this is the way it uses different engines, and that's how they work. The main job is to interpret whatever the backend code is coming, and then display the result on the front end. Definitely check out what are the important engines and how they work. This would really help you. Then the next is DNS. Just a minute. Actually, my touch screen just oh my god, dogs coming in. They also want to learn web development. Okay, let's get back. So the next is what is DNS and how it works. Well, let's get some questions if there are. शुरू कहाँ से करें? Yeah, I'll be covering that. That's what I'm actually doing right now. This introduction is just how you should start. So stay tuned to the end of the video. I'll be covering this thing. Sir, how to create a private API? Again, I'll be covering in the backend one. Don't worry about it. So DNS stands for domain name servers. This is the phone book directory of internet. What they basically this means is any website that you visit. For example, you are like seeing this video on YouTube, which is spelled as youtube.com, right? It's like the simplest definition of how you go and connect to any website. But actually, the YouTube code is hosted on some kind of server, and this server is actually known by a IP address. Now, I assume that you know IP address. It's like the phone number of a machine, of how you can reach to that machine. And the DNS record keeps the information which translate any IP address. This phone number thing that we are saying for the servers, it translates it to an easy to remember, easy to say name. So youtube.com is corresponding to, let's say, 8.8.8.8, which is the address of Google Web Services. So this connection is hosted in a phone book directory, which is known as DNS, and that's how it works. Again, I have explained this in deep detail. What are the different DNS records? How does DNS works in my web hosting and cloud hosting video? Definitely check it out. What is domain name? Explained you. What is hosting? Hosting just means how you are running your application on your laptop. Imagine that laptop to be super powerful and running 24/7 a day. That is what the server hosting actually means. You copy your code, you deploy it on a actual machine, and then it just goes on using the DNS system. It's connected via the domain name. Anybody can go and see your website. So actually cloud is not a cloud that you see up sky, it's actually a machine. It's just a fancy marketing name that we have given to cloud, that people get confused about, but basically it is hosting. So that don't get confused about doing cloud, AWS, Google Cloud and all that. Don't go too much into them. A simple basic hosting an application using terminal is enough for you to do web development, so don't get confused into them. Then the next building block and the most important is HTML, which stands for hypertext markup language. Yes, yeah, I'm right. So the it's actually the way we create applications. There were other ways by which you can create website too, like XML, or like simple, I don't know which other languages were come, but HTML like became the most popular. The current version that probably websites use is HTML5, which you have heard sometimes. And who actually comes up with these different versions of HTML is a consortium, which is W3C, World Wide Web Consortium. They have a meeting every 2 months or 6 months where people around the globe, companies around the globe, developers around the globe get together and say, okay, this is the new, let's say, rule. It's same work like a democratic government where the rules are governed by the people who are leading, which are chosen by people. So the same way people come together, say, okay, we will not use double equal to for assigning like making comparisons, we'll use triple equal to. So this is the place where everything is getting decided, and then we as a developer has to follow these guidelines, these consortiums. And these are known by different HTML versions: HTML 3.0, HTML 4.0, HTML 5.0. So they come up with these. And then if it's a private company, they come up with their own versioning. So this is like the semantic versioning that I was talking about. So learn the basics of HTML. Again, I don't need to go in deep. Learn how to create normal website. What is semantic HTML? Learn to build forms, how to validate forms. Forms are the way how any input is taken from an interface. Then what are the best practices and conventions of creating HTML code, writing a clean HTML code, responsive UI, most important thing, how to create accessible websites, how to nail the SEO, how the SEO works and all that. So this will all come in the HTML category. Learn the basics of SEO and all these things. Then the next thing is CSS, stands for cascading style sheets. This is the way, imagine it is like the beauty makeup for HTML. What you write in HTML is plain, simple, no color, no font styling, nothing. So CSS is what adds touches, colors to everything. So if you are on YouTube again, the thing that is causing the black background of the YouTube or the grayish background of YouTube is using CSS. If you don't know the basics, learn the basics first. Then you should know different layouts. Again, a lot of people don't know about this still, who are even the senior level people, but what are different layouts in CSS. So for them to clear, there are like floats, like which help you like float item in left and right. Again, you can go in deep in any CSS course. This is what they will teach you about layouts, the first thing in web development course. Positioning of elements, displaying elements, box model, CSS grid, flexbox, all these very important things. Definitely check it out. Then the third one is JavaScript. Now you will see that the thing that you already know, probably HTML, CSS, is not even the 30% of what we use in modern web. And the way it is that when you were doing schooling, or the date at which our education system is running hasn't like been that fast as the JavaScript. So this is the probable reason why you know HTML and CSS and why you don't know JavaScript, because they didn't taught you. And why they didn't taught you? Because their speed is not that good enough. So you are the one who have to learn JavaScript yourself. And I am the one who will be telling you what JavaScript is and what are the different things that you need to do. Let's see if anybody has a question. Is web development the easiest as compared to app development, ML and AI? Well, it depends. If you're a person who wants to work independent and want to see things happening fast, you want to create fast things without losing a lot of time, so I'll say yes, because app development, again, not every startup will do app development, I guess. So there are less opportunities as compared to web development. And easy in terms of stack, I'll say So I think the syntax is almost same. Even if you have to do app development or web development, you need to learn the basics that I talked about in above. They also use GitHub. They also use all these things. They also use APIs. And about ML and AI, again, I told you it's a hyped term. It's nothing but data sciences, and data sciences means data algorithms and all these kind of things. So don't confuse yourself. Don't go with a language or a framework by seeing if it's easy or difficult. If you're doing that, you are really a fool. Do it what you like. So do the simple activity. Start doing web development and start answer question yourself after 1 month. Do you enjoy doing it or it sucks? If it sucks, don't continue it. Go with ML and AI. If it doesn't sucks, continue. So just when in doubt, try it out. I am not the best one to say what is easiest. So oh, Madhav, I answered your question. So let's move to our next big category, that is JavaScript. So let's first discuss why did like JavaScript actually came. Like the web was working fine, people were able to see websites, plain websites, no problem. But JavaScript actually came because you need to manipulate things. Like for example, a simple thing for a JavaScript to do is right now if you're using YouTube to maximize or minimize the window that you're using. Now, if it wasn't for JavaScript, you have to reload the page, go to another link, and then see a full screen. Probably you won't like it, right? So that's what JavaScript actually does. Now, the ancestral way, if you go in dark history, it was Microsoft that come up with something called as WebScript. Then they came up with CoffeeScript, a lot of languages. That is why you can see Internet Explorers doesn't like work same as different one because they have their own consensus on things. But that's where it comes. I think by 1995, everybody was using Java to create backend application softwares, and everything that you need to do, you need to install a software to use it. There are no websites. Websites really sucks. It's just plain HTML and CSS. And suddenly somebody thought, what if we run programming language in a web browser? So that gave the birth to JavaScript, and this is basically running Java kind of code in web development. While today JavaScript and Java are totally different because of the syntax, because of the libraries they use, because of the development pipeline. JavaScript works both as functional and object-oriented programming language. What is these two shits? We'll like talk about these two. But Java is just object-oriented programming, probably a little difficult, and is mostly used for backend or like a software level applications. But JavaScript is the code that you use for the front end to manipulate things, like simple things like creating a sidebar, doing search navigation, liking, disliking, commenting. All these UI updates that are happening without refreshing the page is happening via JavaScript. Now, then we have different JavaScript frameworks which are created by companies because everybody doesn't want to write a lot of boilerplate code. So popular React JavaScript frameworks are React.js. Well, React.js is a library. The difference between a framework and library is this is like the deciding moment. You will be confused between what a JavaScript library is and what is a JavaScript framework. So let me help you out. A framework is which needs end-to-end deployment steps as prescribed from the creator of that framework. So let's say Angular is a framework and React.js is a library. So what that means, if you're using Angular, you need to use end-to-end production mechanism of what is recommended by by Angular. You cannot escape any step, you cannot perform any step additional. It's just into that format. Whereas in React.js, you can use it the way you want. You can just import library of React.js, use it for one page, and you cannot use for another page. It's totally up to you. And that's about like the main JavaScript. Then there are other JavaScript frameworks and libraries such as Vue.js, again front end one. And that's if you want to go deep into that, you can choose one of the JavaScript language. I personally work on React.js. I haven't worked on Angular. Work a little bit on Vue, but I don't know much about React.js. But even before going to into React.js, you should do plain simple JavaScript without learning any framework. Should know the syntax of JavaScript, jQuery. It's also one of the framework for JavaScript, and definitely try it out. And the basic questions that comes into when you are working with JavaScript are like the what are the basic syntax of how you use JavaScript. Again, if you are coming from data structures and algorithm background, you already know about the ins and outs of algorithm. That's why it's important to do that thing first and then come over here. So syntax is what will help you understand how you declare variables, how you compare things, how you run loops. All these kind of syntax you will need to learn in JavaScript, and then learn a little bit of basic constructors of how you create a different object oriented functional programming components inside JavaScript. Then is DOM manipulation. Now this is this most important part of JavaScript. This is what JavaScript does. It manipulates the DOM. So remember I explained you that HTML is a markup. So for example, if this is the website and you have to create a div, empty div, which is over here, and then you need to write text over here. Well, the way this is storing the whole thing is by using a structure called as DOM. So the full form for DOM is data object model. And what it means is that how data displayed on the web is stored in form of object orientation. So if you remember object oriented programming, what it means is basically you represent everything inside a object format, in real world format. So what it means that you can have different structure of divs, and there can be multiple div structures in that, inside that. So the way you get into them is using that object model, object inside object, and then this is the way it is. And then JavaScript is the queen that manipulates this thing. So for example, if you click on this button using your mouse, so it moves this to this pointer. This manipulation of this object of over here to this is known as DOM manipulation. And this is the only thing and the most important thing that JavaScript actually does. And then rest, whatever it's happening is because of DOM manipulation. Then again, you can do it by using raw JavaScript, using jQuery, or you can just do it using any library or framework like React.js and AngularJS. So this is the building block of any like interactive web application. Let's see if there is a question. How to learn JavaScript? I'll be covering just that. So well, this answers our DOM manipulation thing, and then learn fetch API, AJAX, and XHR. So now the whole website again itself will be a very empty. The data will be just static and nothing will be happening. The way the backend provides up-to-date new data to the front end is using something called as APIs. So APIs, again, application programming interface, which means the way to interact with any program from backend to the front end. So for front end, as a front end developer, you have to know something called as fetch API. Fetch API helps you get information from the backend to the front end, and that's how you get multiple and dynamic results on top of any application. Then there is another thing called as AJAX, which is asynchronous JavaScript exchange, or XHR. I don't know the full form XHR. So AJAX is also a way of communicating with backend or databases directly using this AJAX method. And then the popular one is API. Then the version of JavaScript you should be learning is ES6, and that's where our modular JavaScript approach comes into play. Again, the best way to learn JavaScript is free code camp. Do the front end course, they'll help you understand. And then small things like hoisting, event bubbling, scopes, prototypes, shadow DOM, strips. These are all the terms that you should know. Any interviewer will ask you questions only out of these domains. There is nothing else inside JavaScript apart from that. Now let's get into deep. What are the other steps that you follow in a JavaScript fashion? I'm going a little deep, and I don't know if I have already used a lot of time, but if you're doing this, let's do this in the right manner. So I already explained you what version control system is and how you should host your repository. What repository hosting means is the way you are storing code on any of these platforms such as GitHub, GitLab, or Bitbucket. Now you should probably already know about Git, or if you haven't, learn GitHub first and then come to learning JavaScript and programming language. So you should know basic usage of Git, how to pull, clone, merge, commit, delete, or create a pull request, all these basic things about Git. And then it comes to knowing a little bit about web security, about how to make application secure, and how different web application security protocol works. I've already explained you about HTTPS. Then you have content security policy that helps you secure the content. Course, again, it corresponds to something has to do with the way data is laid in an iframe. And then you have OWASP, which is again a security protocol. I am not the best subject matter expert, and again, you only need to get the basic knowledge of this. Just google them out and see what them are. Then the next thing is package manager. Now, as I explained you, the libraries that we use for web development, like React.js, you can't do everything with just single one framework or one library. So what you need to do, you need to import codes that has been written by other people. So these are done by creating packages in JavaScript. And there are two different package managers that are popularly used, that are npm node package manager and yarn. This is nothing but a hosted repository, just like uTorrent, which helps you download any packages to your project and install it. Then the next one is CSS architecture. These are basically used by modern web frameworks like React.js and AngularJS. The way you write CSS inside JavaScript, again, if you know the basics of JS already, uh, CSS already, this would be like a butter for you. What it basically means is, when you write React Native code, you don't create additional .css file, or even if you are doing React.js normal web development, you don't create another CSS file. You write the CSS directly inside your JavaScript, which sometimes is also called as JSX, the way you like dynamically create JavaScript inside in CSS. And then different architecture are like BEM, OCSS, SMSS. Just learn one of them, that would be sufficient. Even if you want to skip this step, this is like more detailed step of web development, you can totally do it. Then, oh my god, we are learning so much. CSS preprocessors. And the easy definition of CSS preprocessors, I'm sorry, I'm struggling a little bit. It's same like how does any web language interpretation works. So what people thought, like it is very bad to write like objects for CSS and then apply properties to them. So let's create easy to create CSS which generates something called as min.css, which is compressed version of normal CSS, but for a human readable format, it's an expanded version. So the way the expanded version is transferred into a smaller version is using CSS preprocessors. And there are popular CSS preprocessors like SASS, Post CSS, which are very good to learn and good to know things. Most of the web companies are using these in today's world. Then whatever application you make, you need to build them. What build means is that you need to create them packageable for running on actual web servers, which is a compressed and highly efficient manner of doing this. So to do this, you have to run task runners, which can be npm scripts, which if you have used a little bit of JavaScript, the way you do npm run install, it's like the same thing in CLI to run and package your code for hosting and all that. So these are the task runners you should know. Gulp is another one which is popular, but mostly people use npm script. And then linters and formatters. This is again a clean code practice which people usually use to inspect and audit their code so that the whole application remains consistent, performant, and optimized. These are three important words in web development. So you can use Prettier, ESLint, any of these one language, it's sufficient. And then you have module bundlers. What it means that when you create the whole application package, when it's getting to deploy on a web server or for any other use, you pack all this code that you have created. To pack them, you use module bundlers, which are Webpack, Rollup, and Parcel. Learn any of them, you are good to go. Then you have the actual JavaScript code. Till before, whatever we were doing were basically the normal JavaScript kind of framework that everything is covered in them. But now we are on to a more kind of a framework approach, and the most popular of them are React.js, Angular, and Vue.js. And the basic work of any JavaScript framework, in my opinion, is to manipulate the DOM efficiently. So to do effective routing. Now, routing is a new term for you. I'll explain you what it means. So go right now on any of the modern web application like Facebook or YouTube. open a new tab, open an application, perform a page switch, like go to your friend profile or go to a different video, you will see that the page doesn't need to load. So you might be wondering how the page is getting updated without even loading it. So this is done by using something called as virtual DOM, which is a very effective way in which JavaScript manipulates everything in the real time without a person going to any other window or any other page. So most popular frameworks to do this are React.js, Angular, and Vue.js. This is the fundamental part why actually you have JavaScript frameworks these days. And to manipulate DOM and manage the state of this state of what the page was before and what is it is after performing this action, this is called states. And you need to know different state management libraries. React again uses something called as Redux or MobX, whatever you want to use. Most popular is Redux. And then for Angular, it's RxJS, NGRX, Vue.js is Vuex. I haven't used Angular and Vue, so I can only tell you about React. So you should definitely go with React Redux. The other way to manage states is like using hooks or even using context API. But if you, it depends upon what course you are learning. And if you learn the basic fundamental of this, you can easily switch to the other one. Now let's go to the modern CSS frameworks again, which are having the CSS preprocessor property in them already. I'll skip this part because I don't find this is like the most important thing. The only thing that you should know is the styled components. It's the way like you style the component of the thing. This comes from when you will be learning the React.js, they'll like definitely teach you about how you can style your components. So a simple definition of a component is the individual module that is manipulated during new render or when a button is clicked. So the way to style them is using style components. And then you create different CSS module in which you can import so that you don't need to write CSS again. That comes part of the modern CSS. I'll skip the other ones and let's go to web components. Again, you have something called as HTML templates in which it's more like I haven't used HTML templates a lot. It's basically for web application developers who are using a lot of pages in which you don't need to write code a lot of time, and then you can write like custom elements. Shadow DOM is a technology that you will see when you will be learning React.js, which is equivalent to virtual DOM, real DOM, and Shadow DOM. Again, a way to render applications. So that's where Shadow DOM comes. DOM, data object manipulation. So shadow means a DOM that is shadow of the actual component. When you change the other component, the actual one also changes. Then CSS frameworks to learn many good one. You might already know about Bootstrap, which is the most popular and easy one. Then you have React Strap, Material UI, Tailwind CSS, Chakra UI, very good. Bootstrap, Materialize CSS, Bulma. So these are JavaScript based. This one, well, you can use Bootstrap also in JavaScript based, no problem. But these are just HTML based. You cannot use this one into them. So basically, to kind of design them, you can use CSS frameworks also. Then finally, like you might be wondering, you can create application, you can see everything is working fine, and you can skip to the other one. But in actual, you need to use testing applications, and the way you can test are these three different technologies, which includes unit testing, integration testing, and functional testing. And frameworks to do this is Jest, React, Cypress, Enzyme. I haven't used Cypress and Enzyme, just Jest and React testing library, that much. And then you have type checkers. You might have heard about TypeScript a lot. It's nothing but a type check for JavaScript, another version of JavaScript which checks for the types. That's what TypeScript means. I don't know why people confuse them. Then you have something called as progressive web app, which is like a web app that progresses to a native app. And PWA has been a very popular tool these days, which helps you add application to your homepage, or it works similar to app, but it is actually a website that's rendering. So web apps have something, a technology called as SSR. This is where the rendering technologies comes into picture. But I will skip the PWA part because again, we have created a course on full PWA, which explains everything that we have to do with PWA, like how a simple website can do everything as a native app. So for those of you who are wondering that should I do app development and web development, in a way, if you do web development, you get into app development automatically. Then you have rendering technologies. This is the way the whole JavaScript page is rendered. And there are two types of rendering: client-side rendering and server-side rendering. Any kind of application will come with client side. This JavaScript framework will come with client-side rendering in the first glance. But if it's being rendered on the server side, what it means that when page change, the page will load and server will send a new response. That is using server-side rendering. React.js uses something called as uh, Next.js to server side, or After.js. Well, I don't know about Angular or this. So this is what will come. And then another API technology is GraphQL, which is different than REST API. It uses modern way of interacting with your backend using just a querying language known as GraphQL. Again, for a client library that is popular these days for using GraphQL is Apollo, which manages the state and gets the data from your GraphQL servers at the same time. Then you have something called a static site generator. Your website is usually dynamic, which can pull any content. But if you just want to create like a blog or a normal website which doesn't updates a lot of content, that is where static site generator comes into picture. And you have already seen this about Jamstack thing that is popular these days: Gatsby.js, Next.js, Next, ViewPress, all these kind of things comes into picture. And then using the same JavaScript technology that we just learned, you can create native apps too. So basically the same path you are following for creating native apps also. So the popular frameworks are React Native, NativeScript, Flutter, and Ionic. Uses the same level of front-end languages. Very easy to do. Then you can also create desktop applications. Previously people used to use Visual Basics and Python to create desktop applications, but these days you can create desktop grade applications with just these frameworks. These frameworks include Electron, with which you can create desktop apps with just using web development languages. And then the future step is WebAssembly, and then just keep learning. So oh my god, that's too much. I didn't anticipate that it would take me like 1 hour to explain this, but now we have two. So then there is another chart which explains a little bit about what are the different things about React.js. I'll probably try to cover them in the end of the video or later. But let's go to backend now, and because and maybe we'll like skip some of the things. So any other question before we do that? Sir, how to link Java and Flutter project? What does this means? I don't understand the questions fully. How to link Java and Flutter project. So maybe I'll come back again, read this question. Till then you can frame in a better format. Then again in backend, the same building block of internet comes back into picture over here also, which covers the fundamentals of internet. And then you should definitely know about a little bit of OS, operating systems, because this is what actually runs your code on the web server side also. This includes terminal usage. Again, we have covered this. How operating system works in general, processor management, thread and concurrency, basic terminals. These are the basic terminal commands that I was talking about that you should definitely know while using backend. Memory management, IO, POSIX. Well, I don't consider like these are something that your college also teaches you in a subject called as operating system, I guess. So that's probably the technology that you should know about how these things works. Then you have to do anything on the backend. It's not just learning JavaScript. You can choose among any of these programming languages. This is where the programming language pictures come into play. So the popular ones, we'll start with JavaScript, Node.js, which people use for creating backend with JavaScript. JavaScript is a very dynamic language. And then there are other ones also like Java, C#, PHP, Rust, Golang, Python. You can do backend with Python also and with Ruby also. So these are the languages that you have to choose. Again, VCS part we have already covered in front end also what VCS means. Now let's come to one of the most important thing that is concerning any backend application, that is the database technology. Well, database is about how you store database like data for any backend. It's stored in this tables or any non-tabular format, which is known as database. The popular relational database, there are two types of database, NoSQL and SQL. So the SQL one is structured query language, which is a relational database in which everything is stored in form of tables, and the relation between any object is stored between the primary key and the foreign key concept that you have learned in your college. Popular relational database are Postgres, MySQL, MongoDB, MS SQL, and Oracle. And then the NoSQL database category includes MongoDB, which is the most popular one if you do MERN stack. Well, if you're creating application, you can do the same job probably with both of these things. SQL, you don't need to worry about a lot about data structures in the beginning for the tables. That's the one advantage. And then you have to know a little bit about more about databases, like what are ORMs, what is acid transaction, what is N1 problem, and all these database. I think DBMS is a subject in again in your coding in your classes. If you don't know, just study all these terms. It will be very helpful. By the way, I'll share the link to this whole deck for you so that you can easily visit and use them all the time. So I'll skip the data replication part because that's not important. Then it's about creation of APIs. That's one of the questions that a person asked. So you can create a JSON level API, SOAP API, or gRPC. Most of popular of them are JSON APIs only these days that we use. And you have something called as authentications also that helps people log in. You have Open API also, or Swagger, which people use for Open API. And then the authentication system includes these technologies. Again, the backend is the part that actually does this. You have cookie based authentication, OAuth, basic auth, tokenization, and all these Java Web Tokens, JWT. So let's see about APIs now. So the first thing that comes into API is the caching technology. Again, in my web hosting, I have already explained what CDN is, so you can check out that course to understand what CDN that means. Server side caching means how you cache the application on server so that the code doesn't renders every time. So Redis and memcached are two technologies to do caching on server side. And then client side caching is the same you do with PWA. Web security knowledge, again, this is something that comes from the same level that we did with front end frameworks, so we can skip this too. And with testing also, it's the same level of testing that you did with the front end: integration testing, unit testing, and functional testing. Well, by the way, I want to cover one thing. These are the steps. If you are like halfway already into a backend, you are good to go. But if you want to get more into this, is like what are the last end step of any web development language. So these are the basically those steps. And then you have design and development principles, which are basically followed by like a lot of serious level backend programmers. Includes these technologies. I don't know much about them because I don't consider myself as a senior backend developer. But you have something called as architectural pattern that I do know about, so I'll try to explain them. There are different types of applications that people create on backend. Some of them are called monolithic apps, in which all the code is combined into just one single application, and then just one API is serving everything. But there is something called as microservices, in which every code, all the code is distributed into different small applications. You might have heard about Netflix microservices. This is what actually microservices means, which divides the whole application into small chunks. And then you have other technologies which people use, which is one of them is popular, like that I see over here, is serverless. You have search engine technology also, in which you can create your own search engine using these things called as Elasticsearch and Solr. So probably if you want to go into this field, you can learn about Elasticsearch. It's an open source framework which helps you create Google search level search technology inside your application. Then you have something called as message brokers, basically, which is used for streaming data at live servers. RabbitMQ and Kafka are two most popular of them. I haven't used any of them, so I can't tell you much about them. Then there is a new technology that people use is containerization of application, which means the way its application is running on your system, you create a photocopy of that thing, deploy on a server, it works exactly like the same. That is what containerization means. And then you can easily scale up, scale down. That's what what I understand about containerization, and then Docker, Kubernetes are most popular tools to create a containerization. GraphQL, again, already explained about what GraphQL basically means. It's a query language. Then new way database is Neo4j, which is a very new graphing technology. Apart from SQL and NoSQL, it stores the data in graph format. Then you have WebSockets. WebSocket is the technology which is used to stream data constantly. So, for example, if you're messaging between two people, the data is exchanging continuously. So there is a socket connection between the backend and front end. That's what WebSocket means. And then you have different web servers which are on the server side, which are used to render your application. Nginx, Apache, CADI, and MS Microsoft IIS are popular one of them. If you use, most probably, if you use PHP, you use Apache. If you use something like JavaScript, Node.js, you use Nginx. So this comes pre-built with the web servers. It's like the operating system of your web application. That's the right dilemma for that. And then if you want to build application for scale, which is not a thing that you will do in the beginning of your career, but if you do, these are different way of doing things like migration strategies, horizontal versus vertical scaling, or mitigation strategies, understanding different, well, this is like the far most epitome of doing backend. And then there is a third level which is known as DevOps. Again, I told you DevOps means development operations, which deals with automatic deploying, scaling, load balancing, all these things. So for this you should already know about all these programming languages. I have a question: how to start freelancing? Well, this is a topic that I don't I won't cover today, but the easiest one is just go on things like Fiverr or freelancer.com, get a project, do this, or just like sell your knowledge to somebody, and in exchange you get money and create website for them. So the easiest one to do. Well, let's get back to DevOps. So, well, for application programmers like you, I won't probably like say the DevOps to be the first most important things for you to do right now. So if you want, you can like really skip this step. So for now, but in future, definitely you need to do. But I'll like take you through important steps that I see over here. That I say understanding different OS concept, operating system concept. Again, something that we covered in backend also. Then for this one, you need to know a lot about how servers are managed, what are the different operating system on server side, how to use live terminals. These are all the commands that have been mentioned over here. Network security, because these are the guy who are managing and scaling the application. So these are the things that they should know, like network security and protocols, how to set up these things like reverse proxy, caching server, forward proxy, load balancer, and firewall. And then for web server is a thing that they should know to do, like deploy your application. Learn infrastructure code, containerization, configuration management. So lot of high level thing. Yeah, CI/CD, which is kind of the important thing. I'll like give a little bit of minutes on what CI/CD actually means. CI/CD means continuous integration and continuous deployment. Well, these days when companies work, there are hundreds of developers creating the same application, so it becomes very difficult for people to integrate each other's code and then deploy to the server. So that's where CI comes into play. There are different technologies which helps integrate code easily, test the code easily, and deploy the code automatically without any human intervention. That's what CI/CD basically means. And then you have all these different tools to help you with the CI/CD, like GitLab CI. I use most of the time GitHub Actions and Circle CI. So you can use any one of them. It's very easy to switch to other of them. So not a problem. And then you should know about, if you are like into DevOps, then you should know about different cloud providers. Any one of them is fine. AWS is most popular of them, but if you learn one, this is just like marketing conversion into different technologies, but most of the time it's same. Again, I covered AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, and DigitalOcean in my one of the video that I created. So check out that course, already covers everything about this. And then cloud patterns, which is availability, data management, some high level thing, how to manage logs, this is where it comes. So this is the most important things that you need to do. And then inside front end, there is one most popular framework that I know about, is like that is React.js. So again, if you already know about JavaScript, that's good, but before jumping into React.js, I'll recommend you to go with React.js first, sorry, JavaScript first, and then end up being into React.js. So the first thing in React development you need to know is the fundamentals of React.js, and the most important fundamentals is how to create a normal React app, what is JSX, that I explained, JavaScript manipulation, and how you add CSS and dynamic components into it. What are the different components? Two technologies: functional components and class-based components. If it's object oriented, it's class based. If it's functional, like you create like components and extract data out of it, it's like functional. What is the difference between props and straights, conditional rendering? Yeah, I remember that we created a course on React.js development also on our channel Mobile Web Dev, so I'll share the link to that course also, free of cost. You can do that. Or the best one for me right now to teach React.js is WebBoss. Buy their course, it's the best one. Like you will like really learn a lot. So again, I like, then you go into more advanced topics. Before that, like, yeah, there are other topics like component life cycle, how like all this thing works, different components get mount or unmount, all these things. Then advanced topic like hooks, context API, refs, and all that ecosystem. I think I'll like leave it to the actual course because it won't help you a lot even if I cover these things until you do. But that brings us to the overall scenario about what web development in 2021 means. You probably were like will be thinking right now it's a lot, but once you start, there is nothing that is a lot. You just like complete one thing at a time and then just go forward. So the best path to cover up right now is cover your basics. That's what this steps first steps actually means. Then go into front end and go until this point where you understand everything about package managers, and you have done one of the JavaScript libraries. uh, yes, I guess until this you should do this one and then jump into backend. For backend also, go until databases, not above, more about databases. And then about DevOps also, go until hosting, not above hosting. And then once you complete them, then you're good to go as a beginning programmer. You should definitely create I think 5 projects. 3 projects are also good, but 5 is like amazing. Create 5 projects that involves end-to-end front-end development, back-end development, DevOps, how you deploy the project. And trust me, I can sign on any blank paper. Everybody will be happy to hire you, or even you can become an independent freelancers, create application without any problem. So that's about web development in 2021. I hope I was able to tell you something new, a little overview. This wasn't a detailed scenario about what everything exists in web development, but I hope I was able to open your eyes about what are the things that you need to do and what you should be pursuing right now. So if you have any questions, drop them over here. I'll be happy to answer. So, Madhav, you are still there?
Yes, sir. So I don't see any more questions now.
Okay.
So mostly all of the people have asked their queries, and I think like we'll have a great experience learning from you. And so thanks for sparing your time to interact with us.
Sure. All right. Thanks for having me. Everybody, like, have wonderful learning. If you have any questions, you can come to my LinkedIn, Twitter. Is there any way to message you? Yes, you can find me on my LinkedIn and Twitter. So the best way to reach there and message me are there. Well, till then, I think I'll share. Can I share, Madhav, the link to the courses right away over here?
Okay, sir. So there
Yeah.
is a question coming up, like how to choose between MERN stack and mean stack, basically between React and Angular.
Mhm. Um, well, again, I work on MERN stack. So if like personal opinion, I'll ask to go with MERN. Uh, I think the one most important reason is that it's very easy to do and it's the widest used. So I'll like go with MERN stack right now. But if you are like one who wants to go into more kind of data science company that creates dashboard and all that, that's what I have seen Angular being used most of the time. But again, it's more like potato, not much difference. The basics until JavaScript is same. Once you cover until JavaScript, then is the turning moment, and then you will be able to, I'll say, take a course of both of these things for a couple of days, 1 or 2 days, and like ask yourself what was more easy to understand. That's the way that you should go with. And it's even if you end up being into one stack and you don't understand it very well, you can easily switch into other one. That would be a big issue. So I am
Uh,
adding link in the private chat so you can share with them. So this is our open source community called as Mobile Web Dev, where we host a lot of courses. So there are some courses over there that kids can learn. I'll also add my Twitter link. Yeah. And then maybe if it helps, I can also add, like, I think I'll just add my blog link, and then everything is connected over there, my GitHub and LinkedIn and Twitter. So that would help.
yes, I've shared the link with them,
All
so
right.
that will be accessible to them.
Anything else? Any other question?
No,
So
sir,
I
I
guess
don't
you can
see.
carry this offline, and if anybody has any question, I'm always there to help and help out through the process. So no worries on that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, bye bye. Have a nice
Bye,
evening.
sir. Thank